Welcome to the First Mentor podcast. Here, you will hear us talk about a variety of topics for the entire family that will hopefully spark a discussion, create a new curiosity, or simply teach you something new. The goal is to inspire you to learn life skills and soft skills not taught in school and prepare you to live an extraordinary life. Come on and spend some time with us on your commute to school or anytime you're free.
Hello, everyone. This is your host and mentor, Vanessa Yang. And thank you for joining us for episode 21 of the First Mentor podcast. Today, you will listen to the super inspiring story about Kathy Hao. She will share her journey on how she overcame the obstacles of being an immigrant single mother and pursued her goal of becoming a lawyer while also raising her daughters to become successful individuals. Within her story, there will be lots of takeaways on what it takes to build your dream life. So get your notebooks ready. And at the end, don't forget to subscribe or add us to your favorite list. And without further delay, here's our interview with Kathy. And for today, for our episode of this podcast, I would like to welcome my guest, Kathy Hao. And Kathy, you have such an amazing background. I told you this many times before. And you've just you have so many life stories to share, like based on everything I know about you, which is still more to be learned, right? But I wanted to see if you could maybe start with sharing with our listeners a little bit more about your background.
Well, I think I'm pretty lucky and blessed to have the experience I had. But the ones I share with you, people would guess how old I am. As you know, I came from China. I was born, raised, and educated for up to, college.
Mm-hmm.
I was in China. And I was blessed that after college, at age of 22, I was a college teacher to teach middle school teachers. So I had a 2 year of teaching experience right after college. And then after that, I was selected to be an administrator and translator for China Central Philharmonic, which is Central Symphony Orchestra. They call that the Philharmonic Society because it's a big organization, under the central government of China. It's one of the national symphony orchestra that has strings and, quartets. And then you have the chamber music and chorus, and it's a whole organization. And it also include the first acoustic classical music concert hall.
Nice.
So I was really blessed to be able to work there for a few years. And during my time with the China Central Philharmonic, I was also selected by my peers to go to Europe to purchase the first performing pipe organ for China. During Cultural Revolution, all the cultural stuff and scientific stuff were destroyed. There was no concert halls and there was no, literally all the classical, we call that classical music, were destroyed. So we joke about it, violinist became a Chinese erhu player. Because, violin had no use during Cultural Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this is soon after, but less than 10 years after Cultural Revolution that I started to work for symphony orchestra and concert hall. And all the performing arts were destroyed, pipe organ, even including church, because it's religion. Of course, it's anti-socialism, and all the churches were destroyed, all the pipe organs destroyed. So there's no pipe organ in entire China.
Wow.
So after China decided to build the first natural acoustic concert hall, they decided to have a performing art pipe organ. So I was chosen to go to Europe to do the research and then to select a company to purchase the pipe organ. And the government at that time in 80s in China really didn't have that much money. So, and one of the interesting experience of this whole thing was the government says, okay, we are going to give you this opportunity to permit you to do this. However, you have to find your own way to go there and get back.
Oh, wow.
So we did a little research, and at a concert hall, we had a Bösendorfer piano, which is one of the most elite piano from Austria. So I sent a telegram to them and saying, in a very simple sentence, saying that we need a pipe organ, we need to do research, and we need help.
Uh-huh.
Called me back by telephone and says, yeah, we'll be happy to help you. If you can get to Europe, we'll be hosting you and then send you back to China, but you have to find your way to come here. So
What a challenge.
This is like a parenting, number one. We cannot give you everything. So
True.
we need way. So we decided to take a train. At that time, Eastern Express from Beijing to Moscow.
Oh
and
my God.
Prague, and it took 8 days. Just 6 days from Beijing to Moscow, but that was the most amazing and interesting experience for me because you took the train, you go through the Siberia, Mongolia, and then from Asia to Europe, and it was quite an exhilarating experience for me at the time. So I was very, I'm so blessed to be part of the history when China started to build up, change the culture, to change the education system, and to start to teach public what the Western culture is and what is true classical music is. So that's part of the enrichment I got in the years I worked for the Central Philharmonic Society. Then I came to the United States in 90, and it came with $40. Like I said, China was
I know.
and the $40 was regulated. So I still have my passport, which stamps $40 already exchanged.
Wow.
So foreign money, foreign currency already exchanged. So that's the $40 allowance by the government. So you have to exchange whatever you have in Chinese yuan to the US dollar. So I took $40, sold everything, brought all the necessities from China to the US. And I brought my knives. I could take knife then, chopping boards, and all the utensils and the things I may use for the first 6 months, including towels and soap and all that I could take, and I put all in 2 suitcases and brought her. My plan was for the first 6 months, I was planning of not being able to find a sustainable job. So try to last at least for the basic things and I can save. So this first day I landed, and the second day I was with the friends, and I had friends here in LA. So, and then they took me to the campus, Cal State Northridge. And then, we had a shared house with other 10 Chinese students in a 3-bedroom house to share with the house so you can save money on the rent. So got there, and third day I started to look for jobs, and went to local restaurant and found a restaurant job to be a waitress. And that's another interesting thing to do, that is that when I knew nothing about the United States at the time, because there's no magazine, no TV, nothing really talk about the life in the United States. I'd never seen that supermarket like the supermarket we had here, and everything was like farmer's market. I never seen the clear cooking oil, all the cooking oil. We got a bottle, we go to the old thing, and all the bottles were filled up with the old oils. I've never seen a clear bottle like drinks. Never saw those. So I had no experience of the United States. All I know is that I'm going to work hard.
Yes.
I'm going to try to save as much as I could to be independent as soon as possible. So the third day I went to look for a job, and I got this job. But first day, the owner of the restaurant said, "Oh, you look pretty young, fresh, and attractive. Maybe you can be our host." I said, "Okay, this is fine. Hostess is good. Simple, so I can learn the menu and I can watch and observe." And he said, "But hostess has to be a cashier too." And I was shocked because I had not learned US dollars yet.
Yes.
I recognized the money. I could not tell the difference between $1 to 20, from 20 to 100, because they're all same color.
Yes, exactly.
They're similar, even the coins I could not. I was sweating the whole first evening, and the owner got frustrated and didn't realize someone just fresh off the boat and knew nothing about, not even money, and I'll go home and I had to lay all the money out, start to learn the currencies. So
Wow.
my goal of coming to United States to pursue further education. So I applied for Cal State Northridge and I was accepted by Cal State Northridge. Then I started to work in a restaurant to make money and then going to school at the same time. So, and that's my first era
Yes.
of the transition. And then as soon as I came here, I followed my ex-husband. He was 3 months before me to land in the United States, and he was a student already in Cal State Northridge. So I started to support him because we could not afford both to work. I didn't start my school, start to support him, and then maybe a couple months after I got pregnant, all of a sudden I have a child coming, so all the stress coming in. And so, but I start to work for restaurant for the first 6 to 8 months. And then in between, in the middle of it, I was hired by a company to pay me very little money to be a secretary. I took the job because I could learn. So I could learn the office, equipments, the computers, and we didn't have computer when I came here. So to learn the computer and to learn typing, to learn all those things from office, even though I was paid absolutely minimum. So to work. And so I would work in a restaurant on weekends, and then Monday to Friday, I would work in the office. And then I had my daughter, but I never really give up my schooling. So after my ex-husband finished his school, then I decided to go back to school to get my master's degree. And after I got my master's degree, actually in between that, I got second child. So I got
two of them.
Right. And then, when I think second year of my graduate school, and I was pregnant with my daughter, Connie, before I went to college, I wanted to explore the possibility of going to law school, because when I was in China, legal field was empty. It was completely blank, and there's no law firms, and there's nothing. I mean, all the judicial system are from Chinese Communist Party, and there's no formal training or any systematic training to be in the legal system. So it's something completely new to me. I found it very intrigued by that, but all I heard is law school is expensive. It is, higher requirements, and you can't find a job, and, nobody's going to hire you. And, so at the time it's totally different in the 90s. So I was discouraged. And plus I was, poor foreign student at the time with the 2 kids already. I didn't really go right to law school, but I went to sociology major as graduate school. I thought, okay, sociology is some major that I can enhance me. If I want to go higher, I can go to PhD, or I can just work in a social services area, or I can do a social work research and all that. And I thought this give me a better, wider spectrum of employability.
Sure.
So I decided to go to sociology and got my master's. So I took LSAT, but I just could not go. And in between that, before I graduated from graduate school, and I had divorced, so I became single parent when my younger daughter was 1.5 years. And so I by myself supporting my 2 girls and, going to school full time. So I was taking a lot of classes and at night because I want to finish early. And after I finished graduate school, about 1 year, I found a job for LA County with my major, which is really a great blessing to work in for a government than with the major I was in. And then about 4 years after, almost 4 years after I took LSAT, and I still didn't give up law school. So I called law school, and I checked different schools, and none of the schools have night schools that I can go to. Because I lived in San Fernando Valley and working Van Nuys, and I don't want to drive Orange County to go to law school.
Wow.
And couldn't do that. So I found that San Fernando Valley College of Law offered night schools. So I called them. They said, your LSAT is still good, but in 2 weeks it will expire. So out of that, and I enrolled the next week. And I was in law school for 4 years because I took night class. And then I had day jobs. When I work for LA County, I have 2 days that I have flexibility that I can telecommute.
Okay.
So during telecommute time, and I have more flexibility, I could take some translation work.
Mm.
So going back before that, because I want to get my English better and I want to train myself. And so I found a side job to be a um, movie translator. So I
Oh.
40 movies when I was in graduate school and working for the county until I started law school. And then after I start law school, I start to think about employment. And I was thinking I didn't know any lawyer. I didn't know this industry. I just came because my LSAT would expire. And I'll try to find a way of what I'm going to do with this future.
Yeah.
During first year of law school, and I had to attend a mediation course. So during the mediation course, actually the teacher was a certified Spanish translator. After course, I said, how do you get to certified translator for the court? She gave me a website. It's California Judicial Council website.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went there and I got my license to be in a court Chinese Mandarin interpreter. So when I was in law school, I started to also do certified translation, interpreting. So that way actually got me into law firms and got to lawyers. And because whenever they have Chinese speaking case, then they would need translator to do depositions. So during that time, I did about 300 depositions, quite a few files, and a lot of medical appointments. So that really got me, those two translation jobs really trained me in terms of medical, English and legal English and all that helped me a lot, plus law school's intensive training. So it really helped me a lot with that. So fourth year, I graduated from law school and I took the first bar that earliest possible I could take. I got graduated at the end of 2005 and I took February of 2006 bar. And I was working so hard on that.
I bet.
But I was also working, and not unlike a lot of law students, they would take a few months off. And I was working until the last 2 weeks because I had to support a family.
Yeah.
And I would take my books with me, take cassette with me. I would be listening in the car, would be reading in between appointments and do things and waiting for clients. I would be always preparing for my for the bar, and I was lucky enough to pass the bar the first time. Wow. So when I take the February bar, the results comes in May. So the day the results became public to the test takers, and I was excited. I passed, and I called lawyer friends, and they said, "Oh, that's congratulations." Monday, that was a Saturday. Monday, I got a call from a lawyer saying that I have a court appearances on Thursday. I want you to go. And I said, I don't know nothing. I'm going to court. What I'm going to do? And I'm not even a lawyer yet. I was not sworn in. So he said, just go to a court and see if a judge can swear you in. So I went to Van Nuys court, went to the courtroom and grabbed the judge and said, "So would you please swear me in?" And he was so honored. He said, nobody had asked me this. So he brought his transcriber and court reporter, and then transcribed my swearing-in ceremony there with him. So that's how I started my legal career. And then I start from there, and I start to appear in court, and that was actually before I officially graduated and walk in law school. When I attended to the law school graduation, I already had my law firm lease. Started my practice already, and I got a few cases already, and I was one of the few that passed the first time during the in the graduation class. So I was really, really blessed. I have to say the least. All that I thank my daughters because they were so young when I started law school. They are 9 and 12, something like that. Wow. They were just really young, and they would have to go to school with me a lot of nights, because nobody was watching them before 13. They cannot be left alone. So during the first law school, they had to go to school with me. And I remember before I started law school, I had a conversation with them. I said, I'm going to do this. This is going to be a lot of commitment, and I will not have any patience. So you guys cannot push my buttons. And then you just have to be very careful with me because I'll be busy. Our life has to be simplified. Are you going to be okay? So they both said, okay, we'll be good. So, and they really kept their words. And that's how I just started my legal career. So that's a long story.
What an incredible story. And the rest is history, right? You had a very, very successful career so far as an attorney, and I'm sure it gets better and better each year. I think I heard so many lessons from your story. One is perseverance. You just never gave up. The other skill that you've learned is probably multitasking and time management because you did so many things at the same time. I mean, being a law student by itself is hard, but on top of it, you were a single mother of young children and worked. I mean, incredible, right? Everybody's saying doing one of the three has a hard time already, but doing all three, you probably just had to push yourself and just learn and never give up and probably work really, really hard along the way.
Oh, yeah, because, I have always learned that as a woman, we're so flexible. I mean, we can do so many things.
Mhm.
I think as a, as a mother, you become even more so.
True.
You have to be great in your household and you have to be great outside because you want to support and you want to be a good example for your daughters or for your
Mhm.
kids, so you become more just absorbent of everything. I mean, so I think, yeah, you're right. And I think learning is something that we could never give up. It doesn't matter at what age.
True.
You many things you can learn every day.
Yes. And your daughters must have been very mature and independent. I mean, for them at such a young age to understand mommy's going to be busy, you have to leave her alone. Now you have to learn and grow up a little bit faster and take care of yourself.
Right. Yes. A lot of people probably have different opinions about how I did it with the kids, younger kids. But I have to say that, they grow up so fast, but they're such good kids. And I
Mhm.
think one of the lessons and the things I learned along the way was that children are trainable. They,
True.
you have to have a routine for them. They have to have boundaries, and routine is one of the ways to keep things going and simplified. I remember, even though I was busy with two jobs to schools, never stopped school since I came to the United States. I think I was in school continuously for over a decade,
Hmm.
raised them, going to school. One of the things I learned of that make my life easier was that if you give them the routine and structure, then everything is so easy.
Hmm.
It doesn't require that much of parenting time anymore. I remember they have never missed anything. My daughters had piano classes, violin classes, Chinese instruments, and they have art classes, gymnastic. And,
Wow.
and all these are routine classes. I mean, they have. Some of them quit earlier, some have not. But one thing I said to the girls is that even though I give them the structure, but they can't do everything. But for certain things I want them to have, for example, music. I remember my older daughter didn't like the piano teacher who was has lack of a personality. She wanted to quit. And I said, fine. So why don't you write down and saying that I so and so decide to quit my piano license. I will not blame my mom when I grew up.
I love that.
Because I will not, I don't want you to go grow up and say, you are the mother. You could have insisted on me taking the classes. what I know at the age of, you know,
Yeah.
9 or 10. So, so anyway, so that's how, and they never mention about giving up anymore. Obviously, because I don't have time, I don't have carpool. Carpool is the greatest thing. When my kids growing up. So I have a group of friends who have similar age kids and we would alternate. I had to go to work very early, so I take all the kids to school
Hmm.
and they get off work early so they can take my kids to Kumon and other classes and
Mm.
call them up. So we kind of taken turns to accommodate our schedules and to switch our schedules to do that. So that's how we get, be a single mom. And I was able to manage to have them taking all those things. For the ballet classes, my girls took 4 years of ballet.
Mm.
As a parent, you take kids to those classes and you have to be there waiting them for hour and a half. You have to drive back and forth. So I decided, I always go to gym and I said, well, maybe I just use this as a gym. So I would go dance with them. So I took 4 year ballet classes with my girls,
Oh, I love that.
kids, so that I don't have to drive back and forth and I got my workout. So
It's amazing. And it's a way of bonding too. You're so right. I sit there and wait all the time. And just, I mean, what I normally end up doing is I bring a book with me. At least I don't just want to sit there and waste my time. So I bring a book and read.
I mean, and also you can be a super, adult sometimes grasp things earlier and faster. So a lot of ways that you can be their mentor and you can talk to them and they can laugh at you when you can't get it and they can.
Yes.
I mean, it is really a bonding time. And I found it, even though I don't have the time to take them to the beach, to the park all the time, but
Mhm.
that's our fun time. That was the time that we would remember for the rest of our lives.
I bet. And them
Yeah.
watching you work so hard has probably made a huge impact on their success today as well, because both of them are lawyers with you in your law firm now, correct?
Yes, they are. I'm really, really blessed that the girls didn't never give me any bad time or a hard time growing up. And they have been just so supportive and so mature. And they both are great cooks,
Oh,
just because
great.
not there most of the time.
They had to learn to cook for themselves.
One of the things I feel very blessed is that they enjoy my cooking. They
Mm.
have my cooking stomach. So a lot of times they would miss my cooking and they would miss what I cooked for certain things.
Uh-huh.
And but they went to college, they lived on their own, and then one went to UC Riverside, one went to Santa Barbara, and they would call me and says, "Oh, how did you make that?" And it was the sequence of doing things, and I started to teach them. And now my older daughter actually has a cooking Instagram account.
Oh,
So
really?
cooks drinks that she makes and they both enjoy cooking. It's really interesting to see how they can pick up things
Yeah.
they just to excel.
Yes. And I think as adults, at least for me, I've underestimated my kids a few times. And
Yeah.
I've learned that I shouldn't spoon feed them everything. I really need to let them fall and pick up and learn things, because I grew up with immigrant parents in Germany. I don't know if you remember my story, but my parents were busy in the restaurant business themselves for years. And it was my younger brother and I, and we were just by ourselves all the time. And we had to learn. And I think the way we survived was really, yes, we were lacking a few things because the parents were never there. But at the same time, it gave me the chance to become independent sooner. So I would be a problem solver, because I can't just call my parents and solve all the problems for me. I had to figure things out. I had to raise my brother. So some of his friends always said I was like his mom, even though I'm only 2.5 years older. But
Oh,
it taught me really good skill sets and soft skills, particularly, that I'm using as an adult.
oh yeah. I think being independent is so important for the kids and to be responsible. For older child like yourself and you take care of your brother. And my older daughter, same thing, took on the sister's role to take care of the younger sister. It's a really a good cycle, for learning for kids growing up, and they are just, I think you're absolutely right. Your own experience of taking things with the kids and participating with their activities, and they're so important. And I just could not. I see and I come across with the families, and all they care is about kids to be happy, and they want them to do whatever they want. Going to the beach and a play. All I hear with the play, play, play. I get offended sometimes, really. Became very cynical about it. I think kids. There's so many ways of playing and enjoying. I
Yes.
mean, you can go to beach, play sand as play, and then you can also enjoy a sports, and then you can also learn something as a skill. I mean, learning music is not only to be, trained to be a pianist or
No.
violinist. It is a patience. It is a discipline.
Mhm.
It is the responsibility. So it is a master of your craft.
Mhm.
All that in one thing that you're asking your child to learn. I think that's so important to do. I mean, none of those, when we talk about Tiger Mom and, you think about the tough, strict, yelling, screaming, and, you cannot have B and, B will be not acceptable. I'm not like that. I would probably considered as a classical Tiger Mom because I let them learn so many things along the way. But I'm different from being that tough. My tough come from the way, for example, the principal things, if I had told my girls, I said, well, if you ever had committed anything, drunk driving or anything irresponsible, don't expect me to come to bail you because I will let you handle yourself. And they get scared. As of today, they are still scared of doing anything like that because of the structure we had given them when they're younger, and they have the boundaries and they know right what is wrong, what can be done, what cannot.
Yeah, because our job as mothers are not really pampering them. I always tell my kids, I'm not here to be your servant. I ask them, what am I here for? And they have different answers, but they learned to answer with, yes, I'm here to teach them to become independent adults, right? And giving back to society and becoming independent and all those things. And that's what I really want to accomplish. So if you do too much for them, it's not helping them in the long term.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about your two daughters a little bit. How's the personalities? Is it very different or are they quite alike? Because it seems like they've become equally successful. So I'm curious to see if your teachings with them or your communication with them has been different depending on their personality.
They are completely different. They're really different. I mean, the older daughter is more like me, quick temper. Very affirmative, and sometimes people may label as aggressive. So, and a younger one is a little more passive. I hardly ever remember she lose her temper. She's the typical sweet girl, and the older daughter is more of a, she can get things done. And she's not afraid of a lot of things. And, my older daughter is pretty fierce. My younger daughter is much more organized than the older daughter. So the older daughter is more paying attention to the other things, So they have similarities as well. They both are very responsible. And both are, they both are taking different responsibilities, even at work, because my younger daughter is very, very, very organized, and she handles finances.
That helps, yes.
So, and the older daughter is more aggressive. She deals with a lot of, other attorneys and insurance companies.
Yeah, you need that personality to deal with them.
But personality like that, they're totally different. As a mother, you deal with them same way. It doesn't work.
Right? You have to tailor your communication with them.
Plus, I'm not very skillful. We have ups and downs. We have frictions. One thing I noticed, if I had done something, say something, unreasonable toward one, the other one stand behind the sister. I mean, they always team up against me. It doesn't matter what subject. So if there's any argument or anything, I'm the opposite from both of them. Yeah, they get up against me.
I know from your perspective, you probably don't like it as much, but at least they have each other's back and they protect each other against the outside world too.
Right. Yeah. If you ever ask them and say, if you guys ever fight, what's your mom do? They said nothing. I'll not interfere. I let them figure out. And I don't do that, So they rarely fight in front of me. But today they still sometimes argue and things like that. And still sometimes they have to get away from each other, something like that. But when they were younger, when they fought, I would say, that friends come and go. Your sister will never leave you, and the sister will be your natural born best friend. They hang out all the time, and they go to concerts together, and they do a lot of things together. They travel together, they do a lot of things together. So both of them are new lawyers, and so they are still learning, and they're still, trying to figure out their way. And I always encourage them, you don't have to work for, same firm. You can go out and go find a job. And if you want to work for somebody else, go work for somebody else. And, I'm not asking them to work in the same office or anything like that. But I think they want to learn because it's easier. They can argue with me. And
True. Now, raising them, are there any particular moments that stand out for you that you would say, oh, these were my favorite moments with them?
Well, I think the most favorite moment was that the discussion with them when I decided to go to a law school. And I think that's the really most comforting moment when they were so young and they would say, I understand. Another favorite moment was that they both are very funny. So they're, especially my younger one, even though she's very mellow, but she's really, really funny. So I remember when I was preparing for the bar, and I told them that's the particular time you cannot push my button. I have zero patience. Sometimes I would raise my head and watch them in the other room with a glass window, and then she would pretend that she would walk on her tiptoe around me. I mean, so I think those, and we had so many moments. We travel every year, so I decided to take them to see the world. There are so many places, and we enjoyed together.
Traveling is another great way of bonding
Oh,
together because you experience
yes.
as a family new places. You can talk about it and you
Yeah.
can reminisce in them. I remember the time we went here and this
Yeah.
happened.
Yes. The first trip I went to China was 2000, which is, 10 years after I came here.
Yeah.
And is it because in between they were young and I was struggling, and I remember the first time to China, they still remember today. They still remember.
Oh.
They're 5 years old, 9 years old, and they still remember as of today. So there are a lot of trips that they really remember the time we spent together and with the family and the friends and that. So as an immigrant, we have other cultural background, and those are so important for them to accept, to learn, to revisit. I think it's a great learning experience for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the discussions that I have with my kids, right, I think all parents ask is, what do you want to do when you grow up? What I was curious about is, with your daughters, did they always know they wanted to follow your footsteps?
Not at all. They never wanted to be a lawyer, and I never wanted them to be a lawyer. I don't want them to have a hard life like I did. I mean, I worked so hard. It's a really hard life. Just so many elements in this profession. And they have been encouraged to be doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So they both actually work toward a medical field. Even as 2 years ago, I think my older daughter, graduated law school, a few years ago, but she didn't really get to the bar later until 2 years ago. So just because she wanted to go to medical school, she wanted to have a JD and an MD, enrolled herself to UC Irvine. There's a program for pre-med for those who had graduated from college but didn't have enough science credit to go to medical schools. And she studied 1 year, wanted to be a medical school. But, health-wise, she had started to develop a lot of pain. And then realized, we later learned that she had a rheumatoid arthritis, which really kind of killed her medical school dream.
I see.
Decided to refocus on law. And the reason why they both decided to go to law school, my younger daughter didn't want to go to law school until the day she graduated from college. She wanted to go to medical school. She was also not completely ready to take to the exam, go to medical school yet. She has a few other classes she needs to take. So what benefit I had for them to go to the law school they went was because after law school, I taught the school 7 years. So I became a law professor in the same law school I went to. And that same law school is 2 minutes from my home.
Oh, yes.
So those are such a big plus for them. And they can just walk to law school if they want to. So
That's a huge benefit.
correct. And another benefit is law school is 3 years and medical school is a 4+3, maybe 8 years. So, they start to talk to me, maybe I can get a JD first, and then we still young enough to go to medical school. I'm still not sure. My younger daughter has given up her dream to be a doctor yet because she just graduated in May and took the bar in July. Now she's a provisional licensed attorney. So it's really, I never really encouraged them to go to this field.
Yeah, life happens. Sometimes you prepare for different things, but it's full of surprises, right?
Yeah.
You probably didn't know when you were a teen or young adult that you're going to be a lawyer one day.
I didn't even know I will be in another country.
Oh, true.
Let alone lawyer.
Very, very true.
Never thought that I would be out of the country. I mean, I grew up during Cultural Revolution. I mean, the whole country was closed. You cannot have any foreign connections. I was talking to my family and friends the other day. Is that during that time, if you have a foreign connection, I would be automatically put into prison in China. So it was, it just cannot imagine that you could have any foreign connections. So it's quite different.
And you talk about connections. I think that's another topic I wanted to cover. Connections, networking, friendships. So to
Right.
me, one of the things that I've learned being in the United States particularly, or even as a young kid, because my dad always told me that building a relationship is extremely important. You don't wait until you need a favor, and they never hear from you until you need something from them. So he always said as a young kid to me, make sure you keep in touch, whether it's sending them Christmas cards. So back when I was growing up, there was no internet, no email, and what have you. So I had to handwrite Christmas cards and send them to relatives all over the world. Keeping in touch, networking, just build a large network. And now I think that skill set has really helped me when I became a professional. And I know you have probably a huge network. How do you communicate that with your daughters or teaching them along the way how beneficial it is to make more connections, and share a little bit about that?
They witnessed a lot of those connections at the beginning of the connections and prolonged connections. I do have a huge connections because I came from China and I was a full adult when I was in China, and I was working in a very, very professional environment. So I have a lot of friends that remain connections, and now I'm practicing a lot of immigration. So that connect me back to those old contacts and the connections to connections. So, and I think they actually witnessed quite a few of those, and they realized, okay, this is how things work. I go to depositions and I start to talk to people, make contacts with friends, and then we start to talk and we start to learn, because I'm always trying to learn. So people like that. People are very generous in terms of offering help towards our connections. So I had told my daughters to, once they become professional, they need to be more involved with professional groups and organizations. And then my daughters are into music. And I said, well, there's a lawyers symphony orchestra. You can
Is there?
Yeah, there is. So, join a bar association and go to those professional meetings and get to know, not only you trying to get connection, build connections for your future usage, but it's a connection of learning. So have something you want to help, and it's a learning process. I remember on one flight, I was in China, my daughters were with me. A guy next to me, and he was just after food, and this guy just went to sleep the entire time. And I was thinking, this guy seemed to be a very boring guy. But at the last 45 minutes, when we had to put things together and getting ready to off board, we start to talk. So he says, oh, where are you going? And I said, oh, I was invited to go to this place and that place in China. And he says, okay, I was on a business trip and I'm just going to land in Beijing. But if you ever need help in Beijing, please call me. And turned out to be this guy is a very big guy in Beijing. And he's in charge of all the exporting stuff from China. So he's well connected. And he was so nice. And I was in Xinjiang, which is very far end of China. And he knew which day I would come to Beijing. And he called me. He says, you don't have to worry. I have a driver and a hotels for you. I had another colleague, American colleague, and my two daughters. I said, well, I can get you a few rooms. Then just come to Beijing and I'll pick you up and just enjoy Beijing. And that became a very close friend.
Wow.
My daughters were right there and watching us talking to each other and start to develop this relatable connections just by observing. They started to realize. So now they feel, during pandemic, and they feel really liking of that because they don't have any opportunities to go anywhere. So they are really frustrated. But in the past, I had sent them to China and to other places, to Europe. But when they go to Europe, I have friends in Europe will treat them and take them to go to places. And when they go to China, my middle school friends, elementary school friends, will still remain contacts.
Wow.
Would still take care of them, take them and, show them around. So they see the connections, they see the warmth, and they see the love and, between and among the people. So I think those are very helpful.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing with networking is also setting intention. You cannot always be passive, because what I've learned in life is normally opportunities are not coming to knock on your door. And that comes with connections and relationship. So even at a young age, when they said, Mommy, I would like to have a play date with so-and-so, I'm like, okay, you go and get me their mommy's phone number. So you have to take an initiative to do something. It's not just all me hunting the mother down, but you have to take a part of it and say they learn. And after a while, I didn't even have to ask. They came with a sheet of paper and said, this is my friend so-and-so's mommy's phone number. Call her now.
That's so great. Yeah, I think you're a much better parent than I, because you are so conscious about that. I was not. I had no mentor, nobody, really teach me of anything, but I just listening to you, you're doing all the right things and you're consciously doing that. I was forced to do those, not by choice, but you're doing that by choice, which is very admirable.
Yeah. I tried. What was lucky for me is that in my early 20s, I became very interested in personal growth and development. So I read a lot of books when I came to the United States at 19, knowing not a single person. My English was limited to 5 sentences. And I've always been bubbly and building new friendship. That was always very interesting to me. And when I came here by myself, I quickly had to learn to make friends with people. But I think over time, as I was reading in books and learning, I tried to be very intentional and then teaching my kids different things because I wasn't taught a lot. And I always feel like I was several years behind my peers. So I try to kind of give them a little bit of a head start with different things.
That's amazing. So they're still young, so they have great future.
Yes, I hope so. I've taken a lot of your time here, but in case somebody wants to learn a little bit more about your law firm or law practice, what's a good way for them to find out more information?
My website will be tcwlaws.com. It's the best way to either reach us or learn something about us. We do litigation and we do a lot of professional immigration, person with extraordinary ability, and like stars and and models and novelists and scientists and all these kind of highly achieved businessmen. We do a lot of those immigration.
I'm sure if I come across more to send more people your way.
Thank you so much.
It was really a great time talking to you, Kathy. Hope we stay in touch this year.
Please, and be safe and be healthy and be happy.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my interview with Kathy Hao. Isn't she an incredible woman? If you don't know her story, you might admire her or maybe even envy the life she has right now. But she worked hard for it and absolutely deserves it. She reminds me of a Dave Ramsey quote that states, "If you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else." Did it sink in? Let me repeat it. If you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. So for Kathy, she worked hard like no one else so that she can now live the life she deserves. And my challenge for you today is, what are you willing to do now to later live like no one else? Hope that inspires you to have a great discussion with your family. Until next time.